Discovering the Deeper Aspects of the Tao. A complete chapter-by-chapter exploration by Ryan Franklin. The Tao Te Ching teaches that the way which can be fixed into a single path is not the eternal way. Use no way as way. We took that teaching seriously. Rather than presenting one interpretation and calling it correct, we examine every chapter through 4 classical lenses: philosophy, cultivation, Zen, and martial arts, because Laozi himself warned us against clinging to one perspective. Each lens reveals truths the others cannot see. Together, they uncover possibilities that no single reading ever could. This is the Tao Te Ching. Read the way it asks to be read, with an open mind, from every angle, holding nothing fixed. Wang Bi, the brilliant young philosopher of the 3rd century, reads each verse as revealing the deep structure of reality. The relationship between being and non-being, form and emptiness. Heshang Gong, the hermit by the river, reads the same words as a manual for inner cultivation. Breath, energy, meditation, and the transformation of the self. Chan Buddhism was born from the meeting of Indian meditation and Taoist insight. Its founders studied the Tao Te Ching deeply, and recognized in it the same truths they had discovered through sitting. Chan strips away commentary to ask, what is this verse pointing to, right now, before you think about it? The internal martial arts, Tai Chi, Bagua, Xingyi, are the Tao Te Ching made physical. They were created by Taoist practitioners who took Laozi's words literally: the soft overcomes the hard, the yielding overcomes the forceful. Every verse is read through the body. Neither Chan nor martial arts is foreign to this text. They are what happens when different traditions take the Tao seriously and follow where it leads. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Nameless, the origin of heaven and earth. Named, the mother of 10,000 things. Free from desire, perceive the mystery. Caught in desire, see only the manifestations. These two spring from one source but differ in name. Both are called profound. Profound and again profound. The gateway of all wonders. Tao. The way, ineffable cosmic principle, both path and source, that which cannot be captured yet pervades all. Chang. Eternal, constant, what endures beyond the flux of names and forms, the unchanging within change. Ming. Name, the human act of categorizing reality, useful but inevitably partial, the net that cannot catch water. Wu. Non-being, not mere emptiness but pregnant void, the womb from which all phenomena emerge. Wang Bi, philosophical. This is not a temporal sequence but an ontological relationship. The named always depends on the nameless, as form depends on emptiness. The sage perceives this dependency and therefore dwells in the uncarved simplicity beneath all categories, acting in accordance with naturalness rather than imposed patterns. Mystery within mystery is not mystification but the recognition that reality operates through depths within depths, each revelation opening onto further mystery. Heshang Gong, cultivation. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth, points to our original nature before the mind divided the world into categories. In meditation, we return to this state, not by forcing blankness but by allowing the natural settling that occurs when we cease agitating the waters of consciousness. The named is the mother of 10,000 things, acknowledges our necessary engagement with the world of form. The balance between desirelessness and desire is not about extinguishing all wants but about cultivating the capacity to hold desire lightly, observing how it colors our perception. Through this practice, we become vessels for the Tao's nurturing power. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. This is not paradox for its own sake but direct pointing to what lies before thinking. The nameless is original mind awareness before it splits into observer and observed. The named is the 10,000 things that arise when mind moves. But here is the secret the verse reveals: these two spring from one source. Subject and object, silence and speech, emptiness and form are not two. Chan practice is not about choosing the nameless over the named, but about realizing their fundamental non-duality. Mystery within mystery is not a distant mystery but this very moment, seen clearly. Internal martial arts. Every martial tradition knows the distance between the technique that can be named and the art that cannot. The kata, the form, the drill, the combination, these can be taught and practiced. The single whip in Tai Chi Chuan, the hip throw in Judo, the double leg in wrestling, all can be named and drilled. But what makes a fighter alive in the moment cannot be transmitted through instruction alone. It emerges only when the practitioner stops performing technique and begins responding from something deeper. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth is the state before the fight, stillness from which any response can emerge. When all beneath heaven know beauty as beauty, ugliness is already born. When all know good as good, not good has already arisen. Being and non-being give birth to each other. Difficult and easy complete each other. Long and short reveal each other. High and low lean into each other. Tone and voice harmonize with each other. Before and after follow each other. Therefore the sage attends to the work of non-action. Practices the teaching without words. The 10,000 things arise, yet he does not start them. They live, yet he does not possess them. He acts, yet does not rely on his action. Merit is achieved, yet he does not dwell there. Because he does not dwell, nothing departs. May. Beauty, that which pleases, arises only in contrast with its opposite, not an essence but a relationship. Ugly, evil, the shadow cast by beauty's light, neither exists independently. Xiang. Mutually, the character of reciprocal arising, each pole generates and depends on its opposite. Sheng. Give birth, continuous arising, not creation from nothing but transformation within unity. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Guidance for cultivating inner harmony through acceptance of natural cycles. When we chase beauty and flee ugliness, we exhaust our vital energy in endless pursuit. When we cling to good and resist not good, we create internal conflict that disturbs the natural flow of qi. The cultivation path lies in embracing both poles without attachment to either. In breath practice, we do not favor the inhale over the exhale, both are necessary, both arise naturally. The sage acts without relying means he engages fully with life while maintaining inner equilibrium. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. As a direct pointer beyond all dualistic thinking. When all know good as good, not good has already arisen, this is the trap. The moment you establish any position, you have already lost your freedom. Even enlightenment conceived as opposite to delusion becomes another cage. The sage's non-action is not a technique to master but the natural expression of seeing through the game of opposites. He does not dwell because there is no one to dwell and nothing to dwell in. This sounds like philosophy until it becomes direct experience in meditation. Who is watching the breath? Internal martial arts. Being and non-being give birth to each other is felt directly in push hands. The moment of contact is already the moment of transformation. Substantial becomes insubstantial, full becomes empty. The skilled practitioner does not do this, he allows it. This is the martial meaning of acts without relying. True power emerges not from muscular force but from alignment with natural principles. Victory does not dwell because there is no one to claim it, there is only the continuous flow of appropriate response. Wang Bi, philosophical. Revealing the codependent origination of all conceptual categories. Beauty does not exist as an independent essence, it emerges only in relation to ugliness. Good has no meaning apart from not good. This is not relativism but a precise observation about the structure of thought itself. Every act of naming simultaneously creates what it names and what it excludes. For Wang Bi, The sage understands this mechanism and therefore acts without the delusion that his categories capture ultimate reality. Non-action, Wu Wei, is not inaction but action that does not mistake its concepts for the world. Do not exalt the worthy, and the people will not compete. Do not prize rare goods, and the people will not steal. Do not display what is desirable, and their hearts will not be disturbed. Thus the sage governs. Empty their hearts, fill their bellies. Weaken their ambitions, strengthen their bones. Keep the people always without cunning, without craving, so that the clever dare not act. Practice non-action, and nothing remains ungoverned. Shang. To exalt, value highly, the elevation that creates hierarchy and competition. Xian. Worthy, talented, not criticized but observed, exalting it causes disorder. Shu. Empty, not vacant but cleared, the spaciousness that allows natural function. Shi. Fill, solid, substance, nourishment, the grounded presence in the belly. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen, is not about making the mind blank but about recognizing its nature before the dust of conception settles. Keep the people without cunning, without craving. Chan takes this as instruction for the practitioner. Stop being clever. The calculating mind that always seeks advantage, that compares this practice to that measures progress and anticipates results, this mind is the obstacle. The clever dare not act because in the presence of true stillness, there is nothing for cleverness to grasp. Zazen is exactly this, sitting with nothing to attain, nowhere to go. Internal martial arts. The cultivation of song, the deep relaxation that is not collapse but release of unnecessary tension. Empty the heart means clearing the mind of fighting, of trying, of the desperate need to win. Fill the belly is Dan Tian breathing, sinking the qi to the body's center of gravity. Weaken ambition, strengthen bones sounds paradoxical until you hold Zhong Zhuang for 20 minutes. The ambitious mind wants to force, to achieve, to be done. Weakening this ambition allows the body to find its natural alignment. Wang Bi, philosophical. Empty the heart-mind means clearing away the afflictions that arise from comparing, wanting, and scheming. This is not anti-intellectualism but the recognition that conceptual elaboration without grounding in the Tao creates only confusion. The sage governs by subtraction, removing what disturbs rather than adding what controls. When nothing artificial stimulates desire, people return naturally to simplicity. This is Wu Wei applied to governance, not the absence of order but order that emerges without imposition. Heshang Gong, cultivation. But the more subtle teaching concerns the heart and ambition. Excessive desire exhausts Jing, the vital essence. Uncontrolled ambition scatters qi in fruitless pursuit. The cultivator who wishes to refine his inner nature must first establish the conditions for that refinement: a quiet mind, a nourished body, gentle will, and strong foundation. These are not separate practices but aspects of one integrated approach. When cultivators of the way live like this, even the clever among them find no opportunity to disturb the natural order. The Tao is empty, yet in use never exhausted. Fathomless, it seems the ancestor of all things. It blunts the sharp, unties the tangled, softens the glare, settles with the dust. Deep and still, it seems barely to exist. I do not know whose child it is. It appears to precede the sovereign ancestor. Chong. Empty, poured out, the Tao's essential quality, not vacancy but receptive spaciousness. Ying. Full, overflowing, what the Tao never becomes, excess that would prevent function. Yuan. Deep, fathomless, the Tao's inexhaustible depth, source that never runs dry. Di Zoom. Ancestor, source, the origin of all lineages, that from which everything descends. Internal martial arts. The quality of true power. Empty, yet in use never exhausted, this is the inexhaustible energy that comes not from muscular tension but from correct alignment with gravity and breath. This empty center is precisely the source from which all movement springs. Blunt the sharp, untie the tangled describes the softening process essential to internal training. The aggressive, angular quality of external force must be refined into the smooth, continuous power that the Chinese arts call Jin, the trained force every tradition recognizes when a fighter's movement becomes effortless yet penetrating. Wang Bi, philosophical. A statement about the ontological priority of emptiness. The Tao functions precisely because it is empty. A vessel overflowing cannot receive, a space already filled cannot be used. This emptiness is not lack but potentiality. It is the ancestor of all things because every manifest form depends on the formless ground from which it emerges. The four actions, blunting, untying, softening, settling, describe how the Tao operates without aggression. It does not cut through obstacles but wears them down. It does not force resolutions but allows tangles to loosen naturally. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Direct guidance for longevity practice. The Tao's emptiness mirrors the cultivator's ideal, a body that is hollow, a mind that is clear, a spirit that does not cling. When we blunt the sharp, we soften the aggressive tendencies that exhaust our Jing. When we untie the tangled, we release the mental knots that obstruct the flow of qi. Settle with the dust is particularly significant. The cultivator does not flee the world but lives within it, outwardly indistinguishable from ordinary people. This concealment is not deception but wisdom. What is most precious should not be displayed. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. The four actions become instructions for Zazen. Let the sharp edges of thought soften, let the tangled discriminations unwind, let the glare of self-consciousness dim. Settling with the dust is the Bodhisattva's way, not escaping samsara but remaining within it, indistinguishable from those who suffer, yet utterly free. I do not know whose child it is. This not knowing is itself the teaching. The conceptual mind wants to place the Tao in a category, give it an origin, understand it. Chan practice is the willingness to not understand, to dwell in mystery without grasping for explanation. Heaven and earth are not humane. They treat the 10,000 things as straw dogs. The sage is not humane. He treats the people as straw dogs. The space between heaven and earth. Is it not like a bellows? Empty, yet never exhausted. Move it, and more comes forth. Many words lead to exhaustion. Better to hold fast to the center. Ren. Humaneness, benevolence, the relational virtue between people, what heaven transcends by treating all equally. Straw dogs, ritual effigies honored then discarded, sacred yet disposable, nature's impartiality made visible. Bellows, the forge bellows that empties yet never exhausts, structure enabling function without will. Shu. Empty, void, not mere nothingness but a fullness that has withdrawn, the pregnant space from which all emerges. Wang Bi, philosophical. Heaven and earth do not play favorites. This is not coldness but ultimate fairness. The straw dog metaphor illuminates how the cosmos treats all forms. They arise, serve their purpose, and dissolve, without any force clinging to them or pushing them away. The bellows is Wang Bi's key image for understanding Wu Wei. The bellows does nothing, yet accomplishes everything. It does not strain to produce air. The structure itself, properly emptied, generates movement. Similarly, the sage creates conditions and steps back. He does not anxiously manage outcomes but trusts the natural unfolding. Heshang Gong, cultivation. The impartiality of heaven and earth is not indifference but the natural behavior of forces that do not operate through preference. Our qi does not know which organ is more important, it simply flows according to principle. The bellows teaches breath. When we inhale, We do not create the breath, we create the space for breath to enter. When we exhale, we do not push the breath, we release and it departs. This effortless rhythm is the model for all cultivation. Empty, yet never exhausted describes the center's true nature, not a reservoir we fill but an emptiness we maintain. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Chan immediately grasps the radical teaching. Compassion itself is a concept. When we divide the world into those we care about and those we do not, we have already departed from original mind. The sage not humane is actually the highest compassion, holding all beings equally in awareness without the distortions of preference. Empty, yet never exhausted, what is this? Show me your original face before your parents were born. The bellows has no inside or outside, yet it functions perfectly. This is your nature before you divided yourself from the world. Internal martial arts. This is the expansive force that seems to come from nowhere yet cannot be resisted. Heaven and earth treat the 10,000 things as straw dogs. The martial application is non-attachment to outcome. Whether you win or lose is secondary to maintaining proper structure and alignment with principle. The fighter who favors one technique over another becomes predictable and rigid. The fighter who responds impartially to whatever arises becomes unfathomable. Many words lead to exhaustion, excessive thinking depletes energy. The body already knows how to respond if the mind will step aside. The valley spirit never dies. This is called the mysterious female. The gateway of the mysterious female. This is called the root of heaven and earth. Continuous, as if barely existing. Use it and it is never exhausted. Gu. Valley, lowly, receptive, empty, gathers all waters, the model for inexhaustible power. Shin. Spirit, that which animates, the mysterious presence within, what cannot be grasped yet cannot be denied. Xuen. Mysterious, profound, dark depth beyond ordinary comprehension, the ineffable quality of the source. Pin. Female, the generative, receptive principle, power through yielding, the womb that creates through emptiness. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Heshang Gong identifies the valley spirit with the breath itself, the invisible thread that connects us to the source of life. The valley is the body's interior, specifically the lower dantian, where essence gathers. The spirit that never dies is our original nature, which persists through all transformations when properly cultivated. Continuous, as if barely existing, describes the ideal quality of cultivated breath. So fine it seems to have stopped, so subtle it barely registers, yet sustaining life moment by moment. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. The mysterious female is Buddha nature itself, giving birth to all dharmas yet remaining empty. Continuous, as if barely existing, Chan practice is exactly this. Maintaining awareness so light it does not grasp, so subtle it does not disturb what it observes. The moment you try to hold it firmly, it disappears. The moment you give up trying, there it is. Use it and it is never exhausted. The more you draw from original mind, the more remains. This is not like a well that can run dry but like space that cannot be filled. Show me this inexhaustible source. Internal martial arts. The gateway is the body's center through which all power must flow. When this center is blocked by tension or scattered by distraction, power dissipates. When it remains open and connected, movement becomes effortless and energy inexhaustible. Use it and it is never exhausted. The internal martial artist who fights from this source can continue when muscle-based fighters have depleted themselves. This is the secret of old masters who remain formidable when their physical strength has waned. Wang Bi, philosophical. Pointing to the ultimate source, that which gives rise to heaven and earth yet precedes them both. The valley is his key image, lowly, receptive, empty, yet for that very reason able to receive all waters. The spirit that never dies is not a personal soul but the principle of receptivity itself, which cannot be exhausted because it does not accumulate. The mysterious female represents the generative power that operates through yielding rather than asserting. This is not passivity but a different kind of activity, the activity of creating space, of allowing, of receiving. Heaven is lasting, earth endures. Why can heaven and earth last and endure? Because they do not live for themselves. Therefore they can live forever. Thus the sage puts himself last, yet finds himself first. He holds himself outside, yet remains within. Is it not because he is selfless that his self is fulfilled? Chang. Lasting, long, what heaven and earth achieve through non-striving, endurance without effort. Ju. Enduring, persistence through time, what follows from not living for oneself. Live for oneself, the self-concern that paradoxically shortens life, what heaven and earth transcend. Ho. Behind, last, where the sage puts himself, the position that paradoxically leads to first. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. We try to be selfless, and the trying is selfishness in disguise. Heaven is lasting, earth endures, but what knows this lasting and enduring? That knowing is neither heaven nor earth, neither lasting nor passing. Chan practice is the discovery that the self we worried about never existed as we imagined it. When this is truly seen, there is nothing to put first or last, nothing to hold inside or outside. The fulfilled self is no self, which is not nihilism but freedom. This freedom is what the verse calls lasting. Internal martial arts. Holds himself outside yet remains within describes the ideal combat stance, attention distributed throughout space rather than fixated on one point, yet grounded in the body's center. The martial artist who is too present in any one position becomes rigid, the one who is nowhere is everywhere. Because he is selfless, his self is fulfilled. The fighter who releases attachment to winning often wins, while the fighter who grasps at victory creates the tension that defeats him. This is not mysticism but practical observation of how the nervous system functions under pressure. Wang Bi, philosophical. Heaven and earth do not intend to last, they simply function according to their nature, and lasting is the result. The moment intention enters, whether to preserve oneself or to achieve longevity, the natural function is disrupted and the opposite of the intended goal occurs. The sage's putting himself last is not a technique for getting ahead, that would be self-contradiction. It is the natural expression of understanding how things work. When we truly see that grasping causes loss, we stop grasping, not to gain but because grasping has been seen through. Heshang Gong, cultivation. The body knows how to heal, how to balance, how to regulate if we step aside. Holds himself outside describes the witness stance in meditation, observing the body-mind without identification, which paradoxically preserves it. Heshang Gong teaches that excessive self-concern depletes qi while genuine self-forgetfulness conserves it. The sage lives long because he does not obsess over living long. He remains healthy because he does not anxiously guard his health. This is the cultivation secret hidden in plain sight. The highest good is like water. Water benefits the 10,000 things without contending. It dwells in places others despise. Thus it approaches the Tao. In dwelling, be close to the earth. In mind, be deep as a pool. In giving, be kind. In speaking, be true. In governing, be orderly. In working, be capable. In moving, be timely. Only because it does not contend. It is beyond reproach. Shan. Good, excellent appears 7 times, revealing 7 dimensions of water-like excellence. Shui. Water, the supreme metaphor for Tao in action, yields yet overcomes all. Li. Benefit, what water does without intention, the natural gift of non-contending. Jing. Contend, the opposite of water's way, the source of exhaustion and reproach. Internal martial arts. Move like water, formless until the moment of contact, then filling every gap in the opponent's defense. Yield like water, receive force without opposing it, redirect without colliding. Persist like water. The Grand Canyon was carved not by a single blow but by patient, continuous flow. Dwell close to the earth describes proper structure. Weight sunk, root established, center of gravity low. Move in timely fashion is perhaps the most crucial martial principle. Technique executed too early or too late fails, while the same technique at the right moment succeeds effortlessly. Wang Bi, philosophical. The highest good is not a fixed quality but the responsive, adaptive functioning that meets each situation appropriately. Water has no agenda of its own, it simply follows the contours of what it meets. In this responsiveness lies its power to benefit all things. Dwells in places others despise, reveals the sage's relation to convention. The positions that worldly ambition seeks, high, prominent, commanding, are precisely where water does not go. The sage finds power in what others overlook, the servant's position, the student's place, the low ground from which all heights can be surveyed. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Each of the 7 excellences corresponds to a dimension of cultivated life. In giving, be kind, let chi flow outward without attachment. In speaking, be true, do not scatter energy through false words. In working, be capable, but capable here means efficient, accomplishing much through little effort. The underlying principle is waters effortlessly. It does not try to be helpful, it simply benefits by being what it is. The cultivator who achieves this naturalness needs no technique. Every action becomes cultivation, every moment becomes practice. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Can you show me? The verse points beyond itself to something that cannot be grasped. Water benefits without knowing it benefits. It dwells low without knowing low from high. This unknowing is its wisdom. Does not contend, but who could contend with water? Strike it and your fist passes through. Grab it and it flows between your fingers. This is original mind, impossible to oppose because there is nothing to oppose. The Chan practitioner discovers that all suffering comes from contending with reality, with others, with oneself. Hold a vessel and overfill it. Better to have stopped in time. Hone a blade too sharp. The edge will not hold long. Gold and jade fill the hall, yet none can guard them. Wealth and rank joined with arrogance bring their own disaster. When the work is done, step back. This is the way of heaven. Jing. Overfill, excess that undoes completion, the point past which accumulation becomes loss. Yi. Stop, the wisdom of recognizing completion. What is better than continuing? Rei. Sharp excellence that becomes liability when pushed beyond natural measure. Bo. Preserve, guard what excessive sharpening cannot do, the vulnerability of extremes. Wang Bi, philosophical. Warning against the illusion of security through accumulation. Gold and jade fill the hall, yet they cannot be guarded precisely because they are visible, desirable, inviting theft. The wealth that can be taken is not true wealth. The achievement that can be lost is not true achievement. What endures is not the external signs of success but the internal alignment with principle. Withdraw when the work is done is not advice for the faint-hearted but recognition of how the cosmos operates. The person who remains in position after his useful contribution is complete becomes an obstruction. Heshang Gong, cultivation. The over-sharpened blade is the mind honed beyond what life requires, brilliant but brittle, incapable of flexibility. Gold and jade fill the hall speaks to the material resources the cultivator gathers. External abundance means nothing if internal cultivation is neglected. Indeed, wealth without wisdom invites precisely the difficulties described. The arrogance that accompanies unexamined success separates the person from his own nature and from others. The body's work is accomplished through daily cycles of activity and rest, nourishment and fasting, effort and stillness. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Chan sees the verse pointing at attachment. What is it that wants to keep filling the vessel? What is it that cannot bear to withdraw from accomplishment? This grasping mind is the source of all suffering. The Buddha's last words were, "All compound things decay. Work out your salvation with diligence." But what is diligence without knowing when to stop? When the work is done, step back. Chan practice is precisely this. When the thought arises, let it go. When the state appears, do not cling. When the insight dawns, do not make it into a possession. Internal martial arts. The punch that continues past its natural extension becomes overcommitted. The fighter is pulled off balance by his own momentum. The lock that is applied with excessive force injures the partner and invites countering. Every technique has a moment of completion. To recognize and honor that moment is mastery. Wealth and rank joined with arrogance describes the skilled fighter who has begun to believe his own reputation. This arrogance creates blind spots, encourages challenges, invites the upset that humbles. Carrying your soul, embracing the one. Can you keep them from separating? Concentrating your breath to suppleness. Can you become like an infant? Cleansing your mysterious vision. Can you make it spotless? Loving the people, governing the state. Can you do so without cunning? As heaven's gate opens and closes, can you play the female part? Penetrating everywhere with clear understanding. Can you remain without knowledge? Give life to things, nourish them. Give life yet claim no possession. Act yet do not depend. Guide yet do not control. This is called mysterious virtue. Zai. Carry what we do with the soul, maintaining awareness in embodied presence. Soul, the animating essence, what scatters when we lose coherence. Bo. Embrace, the gesture of unification, holding without grasping. Yi. One, the unity beneath multiplicity, the target of all cultivation. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Heshang Gong reads this as a complete meditation manual. Carrying the soul refers to the practice of keeping awareness in the body rather than letting it float away in abstraction. Embracing the one is the unification achieved when the mind settles into single-pointed attention, not focused by force but gathered by relaxation. Heaven's gate opening and closing describes the rhythm of breath, and playing the female part means receiving this breath with yin openness rather than yang grasping. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. When you were an infant, you already knew what happened. Where did the knowing go? These are not questions to be answered but gates to be entered. Penetrating everywhere with clear understanding, can you remain without knowledge? This is the Chan paradox precisely stated. The master sees everything yet knows nothing because knowledge is always about objects, and what sees is not an object. Give life yet claim no possession. The Buddha gave countless teachings yet never taught a single thing. This is mysterious virtue, complete action, complete emptiness, no trace left behind. Internal martial arts. Heaven's gate opening and closing is breath coordination with movement, the exhalation with extension, the inhalation with gathering. Playing the female part means yielding, receiving, following the opponent's force rather than confronting it. Give life yet claim no possession. The teacher transmits the art without owning the student. Guide yet do not control. The master corrects without dominating. This is the mature expression of martial skill, complete effectiveness, complete humility, no ego in the accomplishment. Wang Bi, philosophical. Proposing a different mode, ruling through non-interference, leading through serving, influencing through presence rather than policy. Mysterious virtue is virtue that does not know itself as virtue, action so aligned with principle that it leaves no residue of self-congratulation. 30 spokes converge upon a hub. But it is the emptiness at center that gives the wheel its use. Clay is shaped into a vessel. But it is the hollow that gives the vessel its use. Doors and windows are cut for a room. But it is the empty space that gives the room its use. Therefore, what exists provides the advantage. What does not exist provides the use. Fu. Spoke, the visible structure that serves the invisible. What we see is not what works. Gu. Hub, the center's emptiness, where convergence creates utility through absence. Wu. Emptiness, non-being, the verse's key term. What makes substance useful? Yo. Being, existence, contrasted with Wu, what provides advantage but not use. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Awareness itself, which has no form, no location, no substance. It is the hub, the hollow, the room's interior. A monk asked Jiaoju, "Does a dog have Buddha nature?" Jiaoju said, "Wu, no emptiness." This single character contains the entire teaching. Not no as denial, but Wu as the emptiness that makes everything possible. The Buddha nature is not a thing to possess but the absence of obstruction that allows awakening. The vessel is useful because it is empty, you are liberated because self is hollow. Do not fill the emptiness with religion, philosophy, or even enlightenment. Internal martial arts. But what does not exist provides the use, the actual fighting capacity comes from the empty center that coordinates everything. When the center is full of intention, fear, or self-consciousness, the fighter is slow and predictable. When the center is empty, response is instantaneous because nothing obstructs. The master's punch comes from nowhere, literally, from the emptiness of no mind, and cannot be anticipated. This is why internal arts spend years cultivating what cannot be seen, the hollow hub from which real power emerges. Wang Bi, philosophical. Being is the servant of non-being. This has profound implications for how we approach life. We accumulate possessions, achievements, knowledge, all forms of substance. But what do we actually use? The space in our homes, not the walls. The time between activities, not the activities themselves. The silence between words, not the words alone. Wang Bi suggests that wisdom involves recognizing what we habitually ignore, the emptiness that makes everything else possible. The sage does not dismiss the solid, he understands its purpose is to create and protect the space where life actually happens. Heshang Gong, cultivation. The vessel represents the subtle body, the energy centers that store and transform vital essence, functioning only when unobstructed. The room represents the mind itself, the space of awareness that can hold experience only when not cluttered with fixation. In each case, the practitioner's task is clear: maintain the emptiness. Daily practice includes physical opening through stretching and breathing, energetic cleansing through circulation exercises, and mental clearing through sitting meditation. None of these adds anything, all of them remove obstruction. The 5 colors blind the eye. The 5 tones deafen the ear. The 5 flavors dull the palate. Racing and hunting madden the heart. Rare goods obstruct the way. Therefore the sage nourishes the belly, not the eye. Rejecting that, choosing this. 5 colors, the full spectrum of visual sensation. Overstimulation that blinds rather than illuminates. 5 tones, the pentatonic scale of ritual music. Excess sound that deafens the inner ear. 5 flavors, sweet, sour, bitter, pungent, salty. Indulgence that dulls the palate's true discernment. Mang. Blind, not physical blindness but eyes that have lost their connection to true seeing, self-inflicted. Internal martial arts. The master nourishes the belly, he sinks awareness into the center, feels from there rather than looking from periphery. From this settled place, he perceives without seeking, responds without chasing. The opponent who races and hunts becomes predictable in his aggression, his madness is his weakness. The practitioner who remains at center, neither pursuing nor fleeing, finds openings appear without effort. Rare goods obstruct the way. The fighter who collects techniques, who accumulates forms, who prizes the unusual, carries too much. The master has 3 movements, maybe 4. Wang Bi, philosophical. The 5 colors are not wrong in themselves, they belong to the natural world. But when we pursue them, when we organize life around their acquisition and intensification, we lose contact with what lies beneath appearance. The eye that chases color forgets the colorless light that makes all color visible. The ear that chases sound forgets the silence that makes hearing possible. This is not ascetic rejection but proper ordering. The belly, representing fundamental need, comes first. The eye, representing desire for stimulation, comes second, if at all. Heshang Gong, cultivation. The eyes, ears, and mouth are gates through which qi can leak. Excessive visual stimulation draws energy upward and outward, scattering vital energy. Loud sounds startle and scatter shen, disturbing the heart's residence. Rich foods overwork digestion, drawing resources away from deeper cultivation. The practitioner guards these gates not from fear but from understanding their function in the energetic economy. Racing and hunting describes the restless mind that cannot remain present. This mental hunting, constantly seeking, grasping, pursuing, exhausts the heart's fire. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. The 5 colors, 5 sounds, 5 flavors are the world of desire. We pursue them thinking they will satisfy, but each satisfaction creates new hunger. The eye wants more color, the ear wants louder sound, the tongue wants richer taste. This is the wheel of samsara spinning through the senses. Nourishing the belly, not the eye. What is this belly? It is not physical hunger but the empty center that needs nothing. The eye looks outward, always seeking. The belly sits in darkness, already complete. Bodhidharma sat facing the wall for 9 years. What was he looking at? Favor and disgrace both startle. Value great trouble as you value your body. What does it mean that favor and disgrace startle? Favor is debasing. Gain it and you are startled. Lose it and you are startled. This is called favor and disgrace both startle. What does it mean to value great trouble as you value your body? The reason I have great trouble is that I have a body. If I had no body, what trouble could I have? Therefore, one who values the world as his own body can be entrusted with the world. One who loves the world as his own body can be given the world to care for. Chong. Favor, what comes from below, what places the recipient in dependency. Ru. Disgrace, the counterpart of favor, equally startling to the identified self. Jing. Startle, shock, the response to both gain and loss when center is external. Gui. Value, esteem, what we do with both trouble and the world. Wang Bi, philosophical. It is made of the opinions of others and the satisfactions of desires, all of which change. If I had no body, what trouble could I have? Wang Bi interprets the body here as the body of identity, the self that requires defense. The sage does not cease to exist physically but ceases to invest in the defended self. When there is no one requiring approval, approval cannot startle. When there is no one fearing disgrace, disgrace cannot wound. This is not numbness but liberation, the peace of one whose center does not depend on circumstances. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Favor comes, perhaps a breakthrough in practice, a compliment from a teacher, recognition from peers. The untrained practitioner is thrown into excitement, which scatters qi and disturbs the shen. Disgrace comes, perhaps failure in practice, criticism, rejection. The untrained practitioner collapses into despair, which stagnates qi and depletes vital energy. Both responses harm cultivation. The advanced practitioner maintains equanimity not by suppressing emotion but by not locating identity in external results. His center rests in his own practice, not in reputation. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. When you look for the one who has trouble, what do you find? If I had no body, what trouble could I have? This is not hypothetical but experimental. In Zazen, the body disappears. In deep samadhi, the self evaporates. Trouble requires a troubli. When the troubli cannot be found, trouble floats without anchor and dissolves. The sage who can be trusted with the world is one who has discovered that there is no separate self to protect. Loving the world as his own body is automatic because there is no boundary between them. Not my body versus the world but one body, one trouble, one care. Internal martial arts. It has weight that can be used against it, structure that can be collapsed. The master's solution is not to discard the body but to empty it of fixed position. When there is no rigid structure to attack, the opponent grasps nothing. When there is no defended center, every strike finds void. The sage can be trusted with the world because he has made his body so available that it moves with circumstance rather than against it. This is the highest martial art, winning without fighting, leading without commanding, caring for the world by disappearing into it. Look and you do not see it, call it invisible. Listen and you do not hear it, call it inaudible. Grasp and you do not catch it, call it intangible. These three cannot be examined separately. So they blend and become one. This one above, it is not bright. Below, it is not dark. Continuous, unnameable. It returns to nothingness. The form of the formless. The image of the imageless. This is called the elusive. Meet it and you see no face. Follow it and you see no back. Hold fast to the ancient Tao. To guide what exists today. To know the primordial beginning. This is called the thread of the Tao. Yi. Invisible, level, what cannot be seen, smooth to the point of vanishing, the unseen aspect of the Tao. Shi. Inaudible, rare, what cannot be heard, present at the very threshold of perception, nearly silent. Wei. Intangible, subtle, what cannot be grasped, deliberately beneath the threshold of recognition. Huan. Blended, undifferentiated waters churning into one, pre-differentiated unity, the Tao before form. Heshang Gong, cultivation. The practitioner who reaches this level touches something that the verse calls the thread of the Tao. It is not a thing experienced but the experiencing that makes experience possible. The primordial beginning is not an event in the past but the continuous arising that produces each moment. To know it is not to have information about it but to recognize what one has always been, the formless form that takes all forms, the imageless image that appears as all images. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Look and you do not see it, what is it that looks? Turn the eye around, look for the looker. You will not find it because the looker is not an object of seeing. Listen and you do not hear it, what is it that hears? The ear hears sounds, but what hears the ear? You will not find it because the hearer is not an object of hearing. Grasp and you do not catch it, the grasper cannot grasp itself. This is the direct pointing. The Tao is not elsewhere, waiting to be found. It is the finding itself. It is not a special state to be achieved but the awareness in which all states appear. Internal martial arts. Watch the beginner, each technique is visible, each intention precedes motion, each action can be anticipated. Watch the master, nothing is visible because nothing is separate. The punch emerges from stillness and returns to stillness, there is no punch to see, only the result. Meet it and you see no face, the opponent who faces the master confronts nothing to face. There is no structure to attack, no position to counter. Follow it and you see no back, retreat is the same as advance, behind becomes before. The master's formlessness is not evasion but inclusion. Wang Bi, philosophical. The ruler who understands the sourceless source from which all phenomena emerge does not grasp at phenomena. He operates from the level that precedes and encompasses all particular situations. This is not abstract philosophy but practical effectiveness. The response that comes from the undifferentiated is more apt than any response formulated from partial understanding. The sage sees no face because there is nothing to face. He sees no back because there is nothing left behind. He navigates the present from the dimension that makes all presence possible. The ancient masters of the Tao. Subtle, mysterious, penetrating, profound. So deep they cannot be known. Because they cannot be known, we can only describe their appearance. Cautious, like crossing a winter stream. Alert, like fearing neighbors on all sides. Dignified, like a guest. Yielding, like ice about to melt. Simple, like the uncarved block. Open, like a valley. Murky, like turbid water. Tranquil, like the sea. Boundless, as if without end. Who can let the muddy settle and slowly become clear? Who can let the still stir and slowly come to life? Those who preserve this Tao do not wish to be full. Not being full, they can wear out and yet be newly made. Subtle and wondrous, the nearly imperceptible merged with the awe-inspiring. Depth beyond ordinary knowing. Profoundly penetrating, dark depth that illuminates, obscurity that connects, understanding producing effective action. Cautious, watchful, deliberate like crossing a winter river, vigilance born of respect for what lies beneath. Yan. Dignified, solemn, bearing oneself with gravity, composed like a guest, unhurried self-awareness. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Who can let the muddy settle? This is the entire Chan practice in one question. The method is not to clear the mind but to stop muddying it. Stop grasping, stop rejecting, stop identifying with passing phenomena, and the mind clears itself. It was always clear, the mud was only stirred up by activity. Not wishing to be full, the greatest obstacle to realization is the sense that something must be attained. Fullness is the trap. The master who can wear out and yet be newly made has discovered that there was never anything to wear out and nothing to make new. Internal martial arts. The master's plan cannot be read because there is no plan to read. He responds from emptiness, and emptiness reveals nothing. Who can let the muddy settle and slowly become clear? In the chaos of combat, the untrained fighter stirs more mud, his panic clouding perception. The master settles into stillness within movement, finding clarity in the eye of the storm. Not wishing to be full, the fighter who thinks his skill complete stops growing. The master remains forever a student, forever empty, forever capable of learning what the next opponent has to teach. Wang Bi, philosophical. The sage has no fixed character that must be maintained, he becomes what the situation needs. This is not chameleon-like pretense but complete availability, the uncarved block that can become any implement, the valley that receives any water. Not wishing to be full is the key to this adaptability. The full cup can receive nothing, the empty cup can receive anything. The person who considers himself complete has no room for growth, the person who knows himself incomplete remains perpetually capable of development. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Letting the muddy settle is direct meditation instruction. The breath is allowed to become quiet. The thoughts are not chased or suppressed but permitted to subside. The chi is not pushed but invited to sink. In this settling, clarity emerges not as achievement but as revelation of what was always present beneath the turbulence. Letting the still stir describes the arising of movement from stillness, the spontaneous circulation of chi that begins when the practitioner has become quiet enough to notice it. Attain complete emptiness. Preserve deepest stillness. The 10,000 things arise together. I watch them return. All beings flourish and multiply, each returning to its root. Returning to the root is called stillness. This is known as returning to destiny. Returning to destiny is called the constant. Knowing the constant is called clarity. Not knowing the constant, one acts blindly, disaster. Knowing the constant, one is all-embracing. All-embracing, one is impartial. Impartial, one is kingly. Kingly, one is heaven. Heaven is the Tao. The Tao is eternal. To the end of life, one is not in danger. Shu. Empty, the mind's spaciousness, what is achieved through subtraction. Ji. Ultimate, extreme, complete emptiness, not partial, thoroughness of practice. Jing. Still, quiet, the condition of non-disturbance, the root's nature. Du. Sincere, solid, preserving stillness firmly, the quality of commitment. Internal martial arts. Describing the foundation of combat readiness. Complete emptiness is the mind without preconception about what the opponent will do. Deepest stillness is the body in perfect balance, ready to move in any direction. From this state, response emerges naturally, not planned, not delayed, arising precisely as the situation requires. Watching them return describes the observation of combat's natural rhythm. Every attack exhausts itself, every extension must retract. The master watches the opponent's energy arise, flourish, and return. Wang Bi, philosophical. Describing the sage's relationship to governance and to life itself. Complete emptiness is not vacancy but perfect receptivity. The ruler who has no agenda of his own can respond to what the situation actually requires. Deepest stillness is not passivity but the stable center from which appropriate action emerges. The ruler who is tossed by events cannot govern. The ruler who remains still amid events can perceive what they need. Knowing the constant, one is all-embracing. This begins a remarkable sequence. Because the sage knows what does not change, he can accept what does change. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Heshang Gong reads every line as meditation instruction. Attain complete emptiness, the mind is emptied of its contents through sustained practice. Not once but repeatedly, the emptying must be renewed each session because the mind fills again between sittings. Preserve deepest stillness, having achieved emptiness, guard it. Do not allow casual disturbance to scatter what has gathered. The word preserve implies vigilance, not effort. The stillness maintains itself when we cease interfering. Watch them return, the observation practice is central. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Complete emptiness, this is sunyata, the empty nature of all phenomena. Deepest stillness, this is samadhi, the concentration that allows emptiness to be perceived. The instructions are simple, the practice is immediate, the realization is available in this moment. I watch them return, the witness position is crucial. In the watching, the duality of watcher and watched dissolves. There is only returning, only stillness, only the constant that was never born and never dies. Knowing the constant is called clarity. This knowing is not adding information but recognizing what was always so. The best rulers, the people barely know they exist. Next come those they love and praise. Then those they fear. Then those they despise. When trust is lacking, there will be no trust in return. Unhurried, the sage values his words. When the work is done and affairs are settled, the people all say, "We did it ourselves." The highest, the supreme, the pinnacle of governance, beyond visibility. Do not know the criterion of excellence, subjects unaware of ruling. Chin. Intimate, close, the warmth of the loved ruler, still visible. Yo. Praise, what the benevolent ruler receives, acknowledgement of doing. Wang Bi, philosophical. His subjects flourish not because he directs them but because he has removed obstructions to their flourishing. They barely know he exists because his presence creates no disturbance. The ruler who is loved and praised has done good things, but his doing is visible. The subjects know they benefit from his actions, gratitude and praise follow. This is better than being feared but still imperfect. The ruler is still a visible actor, a separate force in the social field. The ruler who is despised has so corrupted the social fabric that natural functioning has collapsed. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Heshang Gong applies this verse to the body's internal governance. The heart-mind is the ruler, the organs and energies are the subjects. When the heart-mind governs well, the body functions harmoniously without conscious direction. Digestion proceeds, breath flows, Qi circulates, the people barely know they exist. When the heart-mind interferes constantly, imposing rigid control, the body's natural wisdom is suppressed. Systems that would self-regulate become dependent on conscious attention. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. As describing the master-student relationship. The greatest teacher is invisible, not because he hides but because his teaching is so organic that students absorb it without recognizing it as teaching. They change, they deepen, they awaken, and attribute none of it to the master. We did it ourselves is not ingratitude but realization. There was nothing transmitted because what was realized was already present. The master merely removed what obscured it. The teacher who must be praised has done something, transmitted content, provided experiences, facilitated states. Internal martial arts. Years later they discover they have skill but cannot remember being taught. We did it ourselves is their experience, and in a sense, they did. The master provided conditions, the students developed their own capacity. The teacher who is loved and praised is still valuable, he has transmitted technique, built strength, created competence. But his students know they were taught, their skill feels received rather than grown. The feared teacher rules through intimidation, his students perform but do not embody. The despised teacher has destroyed the art by making it about himself. When the great way is abandoned, benevolence and righteousness appear. When cleverness emerges, great hypocrisy follows. When the six relations are not in harmony, filial piety and parental kindness are praised. When the state is dark and disordered, loyal ministers are celebrated. Great way, the natural harmony whose loss creates the need for substitutes. Fei. Abandoned, abolished, the collapse that generates compensatory constructs. Benevolence and righteousness, Confucian virtues, symptoms of lost harmony. Cleverness, wisdom, the mental faculty that can simulate what it lacks. Heshang Gong, cultivation. The advanced practitioner recognizes this dynamic and responds appropriately. In early stages, techniques are necessary, the body has forgotten its nature and must be reminded. But the goal is not technique mastery, it is the restoration of natural function that makes technique unnecessary. The master who no longer practices Qigong is not the one who never learned it but the one for whom the principles have become embodied. His breath is always optimal because optimal breathing has become simply breathing. His qi always flows because flowing is what qi does when obstruction is removed. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. As pointing to the danger of spiritual materialism. When the direct experience of awakening is present, there is no Buddhism. One simply sees, responds, lives. When that direct experience is lost, Buddhism appears, teachings, practices, hierarchies, achievements. The framework indicates the absence of the thing it describes. A master asked his student, "What is Buddha?" The student began to recite. The master hit him. The recitation was knowledge about Buddha, not Buddha. When understanding is present, nothing needs to be said. When understanding is absent, much is said in compensation. Internal martial arts. This is also necessary. Pure technique without intelligence loses to intelligence. But cleverness creates a different kind of predictability. The clever fighter outsmarts himself, becoming trapped in his own complexity. The master transcends both. He neither applies technique nor thinks strategically. His response emerges from emptiness, appropriate to the moment, unconstructed and therefore unpredictable. When the great way is abandoned, benevolence and righteousness appear. When natural fighting ability is lost, techniques appear. The techniques are necessary, they are not the destination. Wang Bi, philosophical. A structural analysis of human society. When the underlying harmony exists, surface phenomena do not require management. When the underlying harmony collapses, management systems proliferate. Laws multiply when people no longer naturally respect each other. Moral teachings multiply when people no longer naturally care for each other. The sophistication of a society's ethical framework inversely correlates with its actual virtue. Abandon sageness, discard wisdom. The people will benefit 100-fold. Abandon benevolence, discard righteousness. The people will return to filial piety and kindness. Abandon cleverness, discard profit. Thieves and robbers will disappear. These three, as mere refinements, are not enough. Therefore let the people have something to belong to. See the plain, embrace the uncarved. Reduce selfishness, diminish desires. 2. Cut off, abandon, decisive elimination, not gradual reduction but complete severance. Sheng. Sageness, what Confucianism cultivates, what Laozi prescribes discarding. JRR. Wisdom, cleverness, the calculating mind, what obscures natural intelligence. Benevolence and righteousness, Confucian cardinal virtues, symptoms not cures. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. What is there before you add anything? Before you decide to meditate, before you adopt a posture, before you regulate breath, what is already present? Embrace the uncarved, do not shape experience into the categories tradition provides. Do not look for enlightenment, do not evaluate progress, do not compare today's sitting to yesterday's. Each moment arrives fresh from the uncarved source, receive it without carving. Reduce selfishness, the self that seeks enlightenment is the obstacle to enlightenment. When seeking stops, what was sought is found to have never been absent. Internal martial arts. His responses are filtered through his knowledge, his movements are selections from his catalogue. The master who has abandoned this sageness responds from emptiness. He does not know what he will do until it is done. Discard cleverness, strategy defeats itself. The fighter who plans 3 moves ahead is predictable to the fighter who plans nothing. Cleverness assumes the opponent follows rules, the formless opponent follows no rules. See the plain, embrace the uncarved in combat, this means perceiving the opponent as he is, not as the categories describe him. Wang Bi, philosophical. The abandonment of artificial constructs does not leave a void, it reveals what was hidden by the constructs. People do not need to be taught benevolence when benevolence is natural. They do not need instruction in righteousness when fairness is obvious. The belonging is not to new doctrine but to original nature, the plain silk, the uncarved block. Wang Bi interprets reduced selfishness, diminished desires not as ascetic denial but as the natural result of returning to simplicity. When one perceives the sufficiency of the unadorned, the drive to acquire adornments diminishes without effort. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Abandon sageness, the meditator who brings elaborate techniques to sitting, who practices complex visualizations, who follows intricate systems, may be adding what should be subtracted. The sophisticated practitioner can become the furthest from the goal, his very sophistication blocking the simplicity that practice intends. See the plain, embrace the uncarved, this is the instruction for how to sit. Do not construct experiences. Do not pursue states. Do not aim at achievements. Simply see what is present before elaboration begins. The plain silk is awareness before content fills it. Cease learning, be free from worry. Between yes and no, how great is the difference? Between good and evil, how far apart are they? What others fear, I cannot but fear. How vast and endless it all is. The multitudes are joyful, as if feasting at a great banquet, as if ascending a terrace in spring. I alone am unmoved, showing no sign, like an infant who has not yet smiled, drifting, as if having nowhere to return. The multitudes all have plenty. I alone seem to have lost everything. Mine is the mind of a fool, so dull. Ordinary people are bright and clear. I alone am dark. Ordinary people are sharp and clever. I alone am muddled. Calm, like the sea. Drifting, as if without stop. Everyone has their purpose. I alone am stubborn and uncouth. I alone am different from others. I value being fed by the mother. Cease learning, not ignorance but completion, having learned enough to stop. Without worry, the freedom of having nothing to protect. Yes and no, the basic distinctions the sage sees through. Good and evil, the moral distinctions that collapse in unity. Internal martial arts. The multitudes all have plenty, they have techniques, strategies, strength, speed, all the things fighters are supposed to accumulate. I alone seem to have lost everything, the master has released all these accumulations. He does not enter the fight with resources to deploy but with emptiness that responds to what appears. Stubborn and uncouth, he will not adopt the refinements that please the eye. His art looks primitive because it has returned to the origin before techniques elaborated. Fed by the mother, his power comes not from muscle but from the source of all movement. Wang Bi, philosophical. He cannot invest in debates whose terms he has seen through. This leaves him isolated, appearing stupid to those who measure intelligence by facility with distinctions. What others fear, I cannot but fear. Wang Bi interprets this as the sage's acknowledgement that he remains human. He does not claim immunity from common fears, he simply does not build his life around avoiding them. The multitude organizes everything around fear, gaining wealth to avoid poverty, gaining status to avoid shame, gaining power to avoid vulnerability. The sage accepts these fears without organizing around them. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Each new piece of information is a disturbance, each opinion is a position to defend, each distinction is a boundary that separates. Cease learning is not anti-intellectual but post-intellectual, arriving at a place where accumulation no longer serves. Like an infant who has not yet smiled, Heshang Gong sees this as describing the return to original nature. The infant before socialization is pure responsiveness, it has not yet learned to perform. The sage has unlearned the performances that adults master, his face does not display the signals society expects. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Verse the portrait of realization's social cost. The awakened one cannot pretend the game is real. When others celebrate achievements, he sees the emptiness of achievement. When others distinguish good from evil, he sees both arising from the same source. This makes him poor company at banquets. He is not judging others' enjoyment, he simply cannot share it, the way someone who has awakened from a dream cannot re-enter the dream at will. The mind of a fool, so dull, Chan celebrates this dullness. The sharp mind that cuts everything into categories has divided what was whole. The bearing of great virtue follows only the Tao. The Tao as a thing. How elusive, how shadowy and elusive. Yet within it are images. Elusive and shadowy. Yet within it are things. Dark and deep. Within it is essence. This essence is very real. Within it is trustworthiness. From the present to antiquity. Its name has not departed. Through it we observe all beginnings. How do I know the nature of all beginnings? Through this. Kung. Great, profound, the depth of virtue that follows the Tao. Da. Virtue, power, the Tao's manifestation in human excellence. Elusive, shadowy, the Tao's quality, not absent but preformed. Xiang. Image, what exists within the elusive, form before manifestation. Wang Bi, philosophical. One of the clearest statements of the Tao's nature as the source of all things. Great virtue follows only the Tao, the highest human excellence consists in alignment with the ultimate ground. This is not morality in the ordinary sense but ontological attunement, being in harmony with the structure of reality itself. The sage's virtue is great because its source is not personal preference or cultural training but the Tao that underlies all preference and training. Heshang Gong, cultivation, will replenish the physical. This essence is very real. Heshang Gong insists on this against interpretations that would reduce the Tao to abstraction. The cultivator knows experientially that what is encountered in deep practice is not imagination but reality more real than everyday experience. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. The knowing is not conceptual, it is direct contact with what is prior to concepts. How do I know the nature of all beginnings? Through this. Chan takes this literally. Awakening is the source of all understanding. The student who asks what is Buddha is pointed back to what is asking. The question arises from the same source that Buddha arises from. To know that source is to know everything that arises from it, not in the sense of having information but in the sense of sharing identity with. The awakened one does not know about the Tao, the awakened one is the Tao knowing itself. Internal martial arts. Without this essence, technique is hollow. With it, even simple movement carries force. The master who has refined this foundation moves from the primordial level, not from the surface of technique. Through it we observe all beginnings. The master sees the opponent's attack before it begins because he perceives at the level of intention. The beginning that he observes is not the arm's motion but the impulse that precedes motion, the commitment that precedes form. Perceiving there, response is already complete when the attack arrives. Yield and remain whole. Bend and become straight. Empty and be filled. Wear out and be renewed. Have little and gain. Have much and be confused. Therefore the sage embraces the One, and becomes the pattern for all under heaven. Not seeing himself, he is clear. Not justifying himself, he is distinguished. Not boasting, he has merit. Not being proud, he endures. Because he does not contend, no one under heaven can contend with him. The ancient saying yield and remain whole. Are these empty words? Truly, being whole, return to it. Chu. Yield, bend, the paradox's first term, what appears weak. Chuen. Whole, complete, what yielding achieves, integrity preserved. Wang. Twisted, bent, deviation from the straight that achieves straightness. Wa. Hollow, depressed emptiness that becomes the condition for filling. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Heshang Gong reads the paradoxes as body cultivation instructions. Yield and remain whole in practice, this means not fighting the body's conditions. The meditator who combats drowsiness creates more drowsiness, the meditator who yields to drowsiness allows it to pass. The practitioner who forces breath control damages the breath, the practitioner who allows the breath to regulate itself discovers it knows how to regulate. Each yielding opens a door that forcing would have kept closed. Empty and be filled, this describes the center's dynamics. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Non-seeing, everything becomes clear because nothing is distorted by the effort to see. Because he does not contend, no one can contend with him. Chan takes this literally. When the sense of separate self dissolves, who is there to contend against? The enemy seeking an opponent finds only himself. This is not pacifism but the disappearance of the conditions under which conflict can occur. The question "Are these empty words?" receives the Chan response, "Try it and discover." The truth of the paradox is experimental, not logical. Internal martial arts. Yield and remain whole. This is the principle of receiving force rather than meeting it. The fighter who yields to an attack remains intact. The fighter who meets force with force risks destruction. Bend and become straight. The path to the target is not direct. The circular routes of the internal arts curve around defenses and arrive at unprotected centers. What appears bent achieves what straightness could not. Have little and gain. The fighter who holds no fixed technique has access to all techniques. The fighter who commits to a repertoire is limited by that repertoire. Wang Bi, philosophical. A description of the sage ruler's governance method. The paradoxes are not contradictions but descriptions of non-obvious causality. The ruler who does not assert himself becomes more visible, not less. The ruler who does not claim credit receives more credit, not less. The ruler who does not compete becomes unopposable, not weak. These outcomes violate conventional expectations because conventions misunderstand how influence actually operates. To speak rarely is natural. A gusty wind does not last all morning. A sudden rain does not last all day. What produces these? Heaven and earth. If heaven and earth cannot sustain them long, how much less can human beings? Therefore, those who follow the Tao become one with the Tao. Those who follow virtue become one with virtue. Those who follow loss become one with loss. Those who become one with the Tao gladly receives them. Those who become one with virtue gladly receives them. Those who become one with loss gladly receives them. When trust is lacking, there is no trust in return. Rare words, speaking sparingly, the sage's minimal communication. Natural, self-so, what rare words align with, spontaneity. Gusty wind, extreme weather, what cannot sustain itself. Last all morning, the time frame even storms cannot fill. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. The master who explains endlessly obscures what silence would reveal. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao, and yet we speak. The tension is the teaching. Those who follow loss become one with loss. Chan takes this seriously as describing the ordinary human condition. The mind that believes it lacks something creates that lack. The seeker who believes he is not enlightened creates the unenlightenment he experiences. Seeking itself is the obstruction. The Tao gladly receives them. When seeking stops, what was sought is found to have never been absent. Internal martial arts. The martial artist reads rare words as describing the principle of economy. Each movement should say exactly what needs saying and nothing more. The fighter who flourishes, who adds unnecessary motion, wastes energy and creates openings. The master's technique is minimalist. One motion accomplishes what the novice attempts with 5. This is not poverty of repertoire but richness of efficiency. A gusty wind does not last all morning. The opponent who comes in hard will exhaust himself. The internal artist need only survive the initial storm. What follows will be weakness exploiting itself. Wang Bi, philosophical. Rare words does not mean never speaking but speaking only when speech adds something silence cannot provide. The sage ruler who explains constantly creates dependence and erodes natural understanding. The sage ruler who speaks rarely allows natural understanding to develop and creates subjects capable of governing themselves. If heaven and earth cannot sustain them long, Wang Bi uses this to critique aggressive governance. The ruler who forces policy through creates storms that cannot last. The transformation does not take root. When the force relaxes, reversion occurs. Heshang Gong, cultivation. A gusty wind does not last all morning. This applies to states in meditation. The practitioner may achieve intense concentration, profound stillness, powerful qi experiences. The mistake is grasping at them, trying to sustain what was inherently temporary. The skilled practitioner allows states to arise and pass, neither clinging to pleasant ones nor pushing away difficult ones. Those who follow the Tao become one with the Tao. Heshang Gong interprets this as the goal of cultivation, not to acquire something external but to become what one has always potentially been. Those who stand on tiptoe do not stand firm. Those who stride wide do not walk far. Those who display themselves do not shine. Those who justify themselves are not distinguished. Those who boast have no merit. Those who are proud do not endure. From the Tao's perspective, these are called leftover food and useless growths. Even creatures dislike them. Therefore, those who have the Tao do not dwell there. Qi. Stand on tiptoe, the attempt to exceed natural height, self-defeating elevation. Li. Stand firmly, what tiptoe standing fails to achieve, stability. Kuo. Stride wide, the attempt to exceed natural pace, self-defeating speed. Display oneself, making oneself visible, what prevents genuine shining. Internal martial arts. Standing on tiptoe, the elevated heel creates the forward lean that compromises root. The fighter who rises onto his toes has already lost. The first contact will send him backward. Striding wide, the extended stance creates the commitment that cannot be recovered. The fighter whose steps are too large is trapped in each position, unable to respond to what the opponent presents. Every error in this verse describes an excess that becomes a vulnerability. Those who display themselves, the fighter who flourishes, who shows off, who telegraphs intention, has revealed everything to the opponent. Wang Bi, philosophical. The sage ruler who applies this understanding does not attempt to appear wise, virtuous, or powerful, knowing that these attempts inevitably fail. Instead, he functions quietly, allowing results to speak for themselves. Leftover food and useless growths, Wang Bi sees this as describing the relationship between essence and superfluity. The Tao operates through essence. Pride, display, and self-justification are additions that do not belong. They attach to the person the way tumors attach to the body, consuming resources, contributing nothing, eventually threatening survival. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Heshang Gong reads every image as applying to body practice. Standing on tiptoe in sitting practice, this manifests as holding the spine too rigidly, elevating posture beyond what is natural. The result is tension that prevents settling. Striding wide, this manifests as forcing breath, extending practice sessions beyond what the body can sustain. The result is depletion rather than cultivation. Each error shares the same structure. The attempt to exceed the natural creates less than the natural would have provided. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Leftover food, what remains after the essential has been extracted. The mind that grasps at experience is eating leftovers, seeking nourishment in what has already been consumed. Useless growths, the proliferation of concepts about awakening, the accumulation of spiritual identities, the attachment to being a practitioner. These grow on awakening the way barnacles grow on ships, slowing movement, adding weight, serving no purpose. Those who have the Tao do not dwell there when realization is complete. There is no one to be proud of it, no one to display it, no one to justify it. There was something formless, complete, born before heaven and earth, silent and boundless. It stands alone and does not change. It circulates everywhere and never tires. It can be called the mother of all under heaven. I do not know its name. I call it Tao. Forced to name it, I call it great. Great means departing. Departing means far. Far means returning. Therefore, the Tao is great. Heaven is great, earth is great. And human beings are also great. Within the realm there are 4 greats. And human beings are one of them. Human beings follow earth. Earth follows heaven. Heaven follows the Tao. The Tao follows its own nature. Formless and complete, chaos that is not disorder but preorder, totality. Born before heaven and earth, prior in being, not time. Silent and boundless, the Tao's quality, pregnant emptiness. Stands alone, self-sufficient, dependent on nothing. Wang Bi, philosophical. This is not human arrogance but recognition of what humans can become. The human who follows earth, who follows heaven, who follows the Tao, participates in the Tao's own nature. The sage ruler who governs according to these principles shares in the Tao's inexhaustibility. The Tao follows its own nature. Wang Bi sees this as the ultimate teaching. There is no standard external to nature. The Tao does not obey rules, it is what rules describe. To follow the Tao is not to submit to external authority but to discover and embody what one's own nature already is. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Silent and boundless, this describes the quality of deep stillness, not empty but pregnant, not absent but full of what has not yet manifested. The center in its original stillness mirrors this cosmic condition. Cultivation returns the practitioner to this state consciously. Circulates everywhere and never tires. This describes Qi in its primordial mode, before it becomes this energy or that energy, before it circulates through these channels or those organs, it moves everywhere without depletion. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. I do not know its name. Chan celebrates this not knowing. The Tao cannot be named because naming creates a distinction between namer and named. The Tao is what the namer is. If forced to give it a name, any name is violence, a temporary convenience that must be immediately abandoned. The Tao follows its own nature. This is the teaching of spontaneous Buddha action. The awakened one does not follow precepts externally. The awakened one's nature is such that action naturally accords with what precepts describe. Internal martial arts. Power comes from the ground, the legs must sink, the stance must root, the connection to earth must be unbreakable. Earth follows heaven, the rooted body must be aligned with structural principles, with the vertical axis, with the laws that govern all physical movement. Heaven follows the Tao, even structural perfection follows something deeper, the spontaneous rightness that cannot be codified but only embodied. The master's movement follows its own nature. He does not decide what to do. The right action emerges because his nature has become such that nothing wrong can emerge. Heavy is the root of light. Stillness is the master of restlessness. Therefore the wise one travels all day, without leaving the baggage wagon. Though there are splendid sights, he remains aloof and calm. How can the lord of 10,000 chariots take himself lightly before the world? To be light is to lose the root. To be restless is to lose mastery. Zhong. Heavy, what roots light? Gravity, weight, seriousness. Jing. Light, what heaviness enables, frivolous if without root. Gun. Root, the foundation that must be established first. Jing. Still, what masters restlessness, the unmoved center. Heshang Gong, cultivation. The basic practices continue: daily sitting, attention to breath, care of the body. These are the baggage wagon that must accompany even the most exalted journey. To leave them behind is to lose the route and find the elevation unsustainable. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. The master does not stop thoughts, he ceases identifying with them, resting instead in the stillness that is their source and witness. This stillness is the master precisely because it does not compete with restlessness, it simply remains, unchanging, while restlessness exhausts itself. Not leaving the baggage wagon, Chan might read this as never abandoning the ordinary. The master who has realized Buddha nature does not float above daily life, he carries it with him, the heavy wagon of eating, sleeping, walking, working. This is not burden but ballast. Internal martial arts. Stillness is the master of restlessness. This describes the center from which all response emerges. The fighter who is restless, mentally jumping from possibility to possibility, physically twitching with anticipated movement, cannot respond to what actually occurs. The fighter who is still perceives clearly and moves precisely. His stillness is not sluggishness but readiness without anticipation, presence without preconception. The Lord of 10,000 chariots, the master who commands vast technique, must never become light, never lose the gravity that makes technique effective. Wang Bi, philosophical. Stillness is the master of restlessness. Wang Bi interprets this as the principle that the ruler's calm governs the state's activity. When the center is still, the periphery can move appropriately. When the center is restless, the periphery becomes chaotic. The ruler need not manage every detail, he need only maintain stillness at the center, and details organize themselves around that stillness. This is not passivity but the highest form of governance, creating conditions rather than controlling outcomes, establishing center rather than directing circumference. A good traveler leaves no track. A good speaker leaves no flaw. A good counter needs no tally. A good closer needs no lock, yet cannot be opened. A good binder needs no rope, yet cannot be untied. Therefore the sage is always good at saving people, and so abandons no one. Always good at saving things, and so abandons nothing. This is called embracing the light. Thus the good person is teacher of the not good. The not good person is resource for the good. Not valuing the teacher, not cherishing the resource. Though clever, greatly confused. This is called the essential mystery. Shan. Good, skillful, mastery that has transcended technique. Track, trace, what perfect action does not leave. Flaw, blame, what perfect speech avoids. Tally, counter, the apparatus perfect calculation transcends. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Leaves no track, the awakened one acts without creating karma. Action occurs but does not bind, doing happens but creates no residue. This is not inaction but action so complete that it leaves nothing undone and nothing stuck. No tally, beyond calculation, beyond preference, the response arises appropriate to the situation without counting advantages or disadvantages. Abandons no one, the bodhisattva vow made functional. Every being has Buddha nature, every being can awaken, no being is outside the embrace. Not valuing the teacher, Chan's characteristic irreverence. Internal martial arts. The opponent cannot escape not because he is held with force but because every escape route vanishes the moment he considers it. No rope, the bind comes from relationship, not grip. The opponent is connected to the master's center. Where the center moves, the opponent moves. No rope is visible yet movement is impossible without permission. Abandons no one, the true master can teach anyone because he perceives each student's unique path. The gifted and the slow both contain what can be awakened. The master sees what the student himself cannot yet see. Wang Bi, philosophical. The ordinary ruler recognizes and employs the talented. The sage ruler finds use for everyone because he perceives the contribution each can make. No person is waste, no thing is useless. This is not sentimental universalism but practical wisdom. The ruler who can employ everyone has access to resources others overlook. The essential mystery, Wang Bi would say, this lies in the identity between perfection and simplicity. The elaborate apparatus indicates imperfection. Perfection needs no apparatus. The most sophisticated governance appears as no governance at all. Heshang Gong, cultivation. No slip, the inner dialogue has ceased. No words arise because no words are needed. No tally, calculation becomes intuition. The body knows without counting. No lock, the openings are sealed naturally. Qi does not leak because no leaking is possible. No rope, the connection to source is effortless, it holds without gripping. Abandons no one, Heshang Gong applies this to the body's own components. Nothing in the body is rejected, every organ, every energy, every tendency is integrated. The sage cultivator does not fight the body but saves every part by recognizing its role. Know the male, yet keep to the female. Become the stream of the world. Being the world's stream. Eternal virtue never departs. Return to infancy. Know the white, yet keep to the black. Become the pattern for the world. Being the world's pattern. Eternal virtue never errs. Return to the boundless. Know the glorious, yet keep to the humble. Become the valley of the world. Being the world's valley. Eternal virtue is complete. Return to the uncarved block. When the uncarved block is divided, it becomes vessels. The sage uses it and becomes chief of officials. Therefore, great carving does not cut. Xiong. Male, yang, assertive, advancing, what to know. Sa. Female, yin, receptive, yielding, what to keep. Shi. Stream, the low position that receives, the sage's role. Bai. White, visible, obvious, bright, the yang aspect. Internal martial arts. The obvious invites counter, the hidden arrives unexpected. Return to the uncarved block, the master transcends style, system, method. He has learned technique completely and released it completely. What remains is the uncarved potential that can respond to any situation with any response. Great carving does not cut, the master who trains students does not impose his style, he helps each student discover the style that fits. The carving reveals the wood's nature rather than forcing a shape the wood cannot sustain. Wang Bi, philosophical. Knowing the white, understanding what is obvious and visible, the sage keeps to the black, the hidden, the subtle, the aspects of situations that others overlook. This positioning creates advantage without creating opposition. Eternal virtue never departs. Wang Bi interprets this as the sage's inner character remaining stable while external positioning shifts. The sage can appear weak, humble, obscure because his actual nature is unaffected by appearances. Great carving does not cut. Wang Bi sees this as describing governance that transforms without forcing. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Return to infancy, the breath becomes soft and continuous as an infant's, the mind becomes receptive and responsive as an infant's. Know the white, keep to the black in meditation, bright states may arise, visions, energies, experiences of light. The cultivator notes these but does not pursue them, remaining instead in the dark field where such phenomena arise and pass. Return to the boundless, the goal is not particular experiences but the field prior to experience. Return to the uncarved block, ultimately, all distinctions dissolve. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Glory exists, the sage knows it, he keeps to disgrace, to humble function, to what has no status. Return to infancy, beginner's mind, perpetual freshness, seeing everything as if for the first time. Return to the boundless, the falling away of all limits, all identity, all confinement to being this rather than that. Return to the uncarved block, original face, the self before parents were born, the nature that is no nature because it has never been shaped. Great carving does not cut, the master's teaching adapts to each student without violating the teaching's essence. Those who would take the world and act on it. I see they cannot succeed. The world is a sacred vessel. It cannot be acted upon. Those who act on it ruin it. Those who grasp it lose it. Among creatures, some lead, some follow. Some breathe gently, some blow hard. Some are strong, some are weak. Some build up, some tear down. Therefore the sage removes the extreme, removes the extravagant, Removes the excessive. Chu. Take. Sees the attempt that this verse declares futile. Sacred vessel, the world's nature, what cannot be acted upon. Wei. Act upon, do what the sacred vessel does not permit. Bai. Ruin, defeat the consequence of acting on sacred vessels. Wang Bi, philosophical. The tighter the grip, the faster the escape. The more action taken, the more reaction provoked. The effective ruler does not attempt less because he is passive but because he understands this principle. What he truly wants can only be achieved by releasing the attempt to achieve it. Removes the extreme, the extravagant, the excessive. Wang Bi sees this as the sage's positive program, not seizure but release, not imposition but subtraction. By removing what is too much, the sage allows the sacred vessel to function as its nature intends. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Some lead, some follow. Heshang Gong applies this to the body's own processes. Some organs are yang, naturally active, some are yin, naturally receptive. Some channels flow upward, some downward. The cultivator who tries to make all energies flow in one direction works against physiology itself. Removes the extreme. Heshang Gong sees this as describing moderation in all practices. The extreme is abandoned not because moderation is morally superior but because it produces better results. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Verse: the futility of spiritual grasping. Those who would take the world, the student who would seize enlightenment, grasp awakening, capture realization. I see they cannot succeed, not because enlightenment is difficult but because grasping is the wrong approach. The world is sacred vessel, Buddha nature is sacred vessel. What is sacred cannot be seized, only what is object can be grasped. Awakening is not object. Some lead, some follow, some breathe in, some blow out. This describes the dance of phenomena, endlessly arising and passing. Internal martial arts. The forceful fighter tries to take the opponent, seize, control, dominate. I see he cannot succeed, not ultimately, not against a superior opponent, not without exhausting himself. The opponent is sacred vessel, he cannot be acted upon directly. What acts on him gets countered, what grasps gets escaped, what strikes gets deflected or absorbed. Some lead, some follow. In grappling, in randori, in sparring, the flow constantly shifts. The fighter who always leads exhausts himself. The fighter who always follows becomes predictable. One who assists the ruler with the Tao does not use weapons to force the world. Such things have a way of returning. Where armies are stationed, thorns and brambles grow. After great wars, there are always years of famine. The skilled one achieves results, nothing more. He does not use them to seize power. Achieves results but does not boast. Achieves results but claims no credit. Achieves results but is not arrogant. Achieves results because he has no choice. Achieves results but does not force. When things reach their prime, they begin to age. This is called going against the Tao. What goes against the Tao comes to an early end. Dizwo. Assist, support the advisor's proper role, not to dominate. Being. Weapons, soldiers, what the sage does not employ to force. Huan. Return, what violence does, what force creates coming back. Thorns and brambles, what grows where armies station. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Experiences arise, the practitioner allows them without attachment. To boast of cultivation achievements even to oneself is to create the pride that blocks further progress. When things reach their prime, Heshang Gong sees this as describing the danger point in practice. The session that has gone very well is the session most likely to produce injury if extended. The period of rapid progress is the period when overconfidence leads to error. The sage cultivator knows when enough has been achieved and stops before the prime becomes the beginning of decline. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. The student who storms the gateless gate finds it closed. The student who waits discovers the gate was never there. What seemed like barrier was only the mind that insisted on forcing. Achieves results but does not boast. This is the awakened one's relationship to awakening. There is nothing to boast about, nothing was achieved. What seemed like result was the discovery of what was always already present. The Zen master who announces his enlightenment has demonstrated his delusion. The master who returns to chopping wood and carrying water has understood. Internal martial arts. The fighter who relies on shoulder strength develops chronic shoulder problems. The fighter who relies on aggressive forward movement develops the rigidity that aggressive movement requires. When things reach their prime, they begin to age. The fighter at peak condition is the fighter beginning to decline. The style at its most elaborated is the style beginning to ossify. Understanding this, the internal artist does not seek peak but seeks sustainable capacity across years. The master at 70 who can still teach and demonstrate has understood this verse. Wang Bi, philosophical. Counsel for rulers who would employ advisors wisely. The sage advisor does not counsel military force, not because force never works, but because force creates conditions that require more force. Such things have a way of returning. Wang Bi sees this as describing the cyclical nature of political causation. Violence today creates the grievances that produce violence tomorrow. The ruler who conquers a territory must then garrison it. The garrison provokes resentment. Resentment eventually produces rebellion. Rebellion requires another conquest. Fine weapons are instruments of ill omen. All creatures detest them. Therefore, one who has the Tao does not abide with them. The wise person at home honors the left. In war, honors the right. Weapons are instruments of ill omen, not the instruments of the wise. Use them only when there is no choice, and then with calm restraint. Victory is not beautiful. Those who call it beautiful delight in killing. Those who delight in killing cannot achieve their purpose in the world. Fortunate events prefer the left. Unfortunate events prefer the right. The lieutenant general stands on the left. The supreme general stands on the right. This means, conduct war as a funeral. When multitudes are slain, stand before them in grief and lamentation. When victorious in battle, observe the rites of mourning. Fine weapons, what even excellence cannot redeem. Ill omen, inauspicious, the nature of all weapons. Woo. Detest, loathe, what all creatures feel toward violence. Deswo. Left, the side of peace, of favorable events. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Verse the teaching on non-violence that Buddhism shares with Taoism at the deepest level. One who has the Tao does not abide with them. The awakened one does not dwell in violence, does not live in the realm where killing solves problems. This is not moral superiority but different perception, seeing that the enemy is not other, that killing the enemy is killing the self, that victory achieved through destruction is not victory at all. Those who delight in killing cannot achieve their purpose, Chan might say, because their purpose is peace, and killing creates the opposite of peace. Internal martial arts. Calm restraint even in combat. The internal artist does not become passionate, does not enjoy the fight, does not seek to inflict more damage than necessary. The moment the threat ceases, the response ceases. Conduct war as a funeral. The master who has been forced to harm another does not boast. He returns home and mourns, for what he had to do, for the one who forced him to do it, for a world where such forcing exists. The martial art practiced in this spirit transforms from instrument of harm to path of peace. Wang Bi, philosophical. Weapons have their place, the lowest place. They exist to be not used. Their value lies in their superfluity. The ruler who takes pride in military power has inverted the natural order, elevating what should be subordinate, celebrating what should be mourned. Those who delight in killing cannot achieve their purpose. Wang Bi sees this as practical political wisdom. The ruler whose reign is defined by warfare will eventually be undone by what warfare produces: exhausted resources, resentful subjects, fearful neighbors who unite against the threat. Heshang Gong, cultivation. These states come and go. Clinging to them creates imbalance. Pursuing them leads to the spiritual equivalent of warfare, internal conflict rather than internal harmony. Use them only when there is no choice. Heshang Gong applies this to the rare moments when aggressive response is genuinely necessary. The cultivator whose boundaries are violated, whose practice is threatened, whose very existence is endangered may need to act forcefully. But this action should be calm restraint, not passionate defense. The Tao is ever nameless. Though the uncarved block is small, nothing under heaven can make it submit. If lords and kings could hold to it, the 10,000 things would submit of themselves. Heaven and earth would unite to send down sweet dew, and the people, without being ordered, would naturally be at peace. When institutions begin, names arise. Once names exist, know when to stop. Knowing when to stop prevents danger. The Tao in the world is like rivers and streams flowing into the sea. Nameless, the Tao's essential quality, beyond categories. Pu, uncarved block, potential before specialization. Chen, submit, make a vassal what nothing can do to the uncarved. Submit of themselves, response to authentic governance. Internal martial arts. Know when to stop. The martial artist knows this as the crucial teaching. Adding technique forever produces complexity, not mastery. At some point, the accumulation must cease and the subtraction begin, releasing what is unnecessary, returning to simplicity, finding that less technique means more capability. Like rivers flowing into the sea, the master's movement flows like water, always seeking the low position, always filling what is empty, never competing for the high ground. This flowing cannot be opposed because it does not resist, it cannot be stopped because it finds every opening. Wang Bi, philosophical. The uncarved block. Wang Bi sees this as describing the ruler's essential nature before roles and responsibilities carved him into a particular shape. The ruler who maintains access to this original nature can adapt to any situation. The ruler who has become entirely his role has lost this flexibility. Know when to stop. Wang Bi emphasizes this as the crucial skill. Creating institutions is necessary. Knowing when to stop creating them is wisdom. The state that overregulates becomes brittle. The state that maintains access to the unstructured can respond to what structure cannot anticipate. Heshang Gong, cultivation. The Tao is ever nameless. What we truly are cannot be captured in identity. The name we carry, the roles we play, the descriptions others attach to us, none of these touch our essential nature. The uncarved block, this is our original nature before cultivation begins refining it, the raw vitality before it differentiates into particular functions and forms. Returning to this original state is the goal of all practice. Heaven and earth would unite to send down sweet dew. Heshang Gong takes this literally as describing what happens in advanced practice. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Know when to stop. Chan might read this as, know when to stop seeking. The student who searches for Buddha nature is like someone looking for their eyes with their eyes. The search itself prevents finding. Knowing when to stop prevents danger. The danger is endless seeking, permanent studenthood, the belief that enlightenment is somewhere else, achieved through more effort. Like rivers flowing into the sea, Chen might say, you are already the sea. The rivers are flowing into you this moment. Stop believing you are a river seeking the sea. Recognize you are what all rivers seek. Knowing others is wisdom. Knowing yourself is enlightenment. Conquering others requires force. Conquering yourself requires strength. Knowing contentment is wealth. Persevering with vigor shows will. Those who do not lose their place endure. Dying without perishing is true longevity. JRR. Wisdom, knowledge of external things, cleverness. Ming. Enlightenment, illumination, self-knowledge that transforms. Li. Force, power, what conquers others externally. Chiang. Strength, what conquers self, internal power. Wang Bi, philosophical. Knowing yourself is enlightenment. This knowledge transforms the knower and therefore remains relevant regardless of external change. Conquering others requires force. Wang Bi sees this as describing the fundamental limitation of conquest. What is conquered by force must be maintained by force. The moment force relaxes, what was conquered rebels. Conquering yourself requires strength. This conquest, once achieved, need not be maintained because the conquered self has been transformed rather than suppressed. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Heshang Gong reads every phrase as describing cultivation stages. Knowing others is wisdom. The practitioner first develops sensitivity to others' energies, conditions, states. This is preliminary knowledge, useful but not essential. Knowing yourself is enlightenment. The real work begins when this sensitivity turns inward, knowing one's own patterns, blockages, potentials. This self-knowledge is Ming, illumination, the light that reveals what had been hidden. Conquering yourself requires strength. Heshang Gong applies this to the actual work of transformation. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. But Chan would add, the self that can be known is not the true self. The one who knows is what matters. This knowing nature cannot be made into an object of knowledge. Conquering yourself requires strength. Chan might say, the self that can be conquered is not the true self either. What conquers and what is conquered are equally mind stuff. True realization is recognizing this and ceasing the war. Dying without perishing. Chan celebrates this phrase. The body, the personality, the accumulation of memories and habits. What does not perish? Original face, Buddha nature, what was never born. Internal martial arts. Conquering yourself requires strength, overcoming fear, laziness, ego, the desire to show off. This internal conquest is the foundation without which external victory is hollow. Not losing your place endures. The martial artist who maintains root, who never loses center, who always knows where he stands, this artist endures where others are thrown. Dying without perishing. The master whose teaching lives in students, whose principles persist beyond death, this master has achieved what mortal victory could never provide. The great way flows everywhere, reaching left and right. All things depend on it for life. Yet it makes no claim. It accomplishes its work, but takes no credit. It clothes and nourishes all things, but does not lord over them. Ever desireless. It may be called small. All things return to it. Yet it does not act as master. It may be called great, because it never claims greatness. It achieves greatness. Fan. Overflow, flood, pervade. How the Tao reaches everywhere. Left and right, all directions, the Tao's omnipresence. Sha. Rely upon, depend on all things relationship to the Tao. Tsa. Refuse, decline, make excuse what the Tao does not do. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Ever desireless, it may be called small. Heshang Gong applies this to the state of mind in practice. The practitioner whose mind is empty of ambition, free of grasping for results, occupies no space in the field of competition and therefore cannot be opposed. All things return to it in cultivation. This describes the gathering of scattered qi, the return of dissipated essence to its source. The practitioner who does not chase after energy finds that energy returns naturally. Because it never claims greatness, the cultivator who does not claim attainment finds that attainment continues. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. The thought arises, original mind does not prevent it. The emotion passes, original mind does not grasp it. This allowing without controlling is what distinguishes Buddha nature from ego. Ego wants to control, to direct, to own. Buddha nature simply is, and in that being provides the space within which all else can be. Because it never claims greatness, the realized one does not announce realization. The announcement itself would be the arising of ego, the claiming of territory within what has no territory. The greatest is invisible, even to itself. Internal martial arts. This omnidirectional readiness is not achieved through vigilance but through relaxation, not through attention but through the release of fixed attention. Clothes and nourishes all things but does not lord over them, the master who teaches without controlling, who guides without demanding, who assists each student's development without imposing a single template. May be called small, the master who seeks no recognition, who takes no credit for students' achievements, who appears unremarkable to those seeking impressive display. Wang Bi, philosophical. Describing the fundamental character of effective governance and leadership. The Great Way flows everywhere, the ruler whose influence reaches all parts of the realm without obvious exertion, whose presence is felt without being imposed. This is the ideal of leadership that accomplishes everything by attempting nothing, that governs without the appearance of governing. Clothes and nourishes all things but does not lord over them. Wang Bi sees this as distinguishing true rulership from tyranny. The tyrant demands recognition, the sage ruler provides without demanding. Hold fast to the great image, and all under heaven will come. Coming, they are not harmed. There is peace, balance, greatness, music and fine food. Make the passing traveler stop. But the Tao, when spoken, is bland, without flavor. Look for it, not enough to see. Listen for it, not enough to hear. Use it, it cannot be exhausted. JRR. Hold, grasp, maintain how one relates to the great image. Great image, the formless pattern underlying all forms. Wang. Go toward, come, natural movement toward the authentic. Hai. Harm, what does not occur when people come to the Tao. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. The great image, Buddha nature, which is not an image at all but the formless awareness within which all images appear. Hold fast, recognize, remember, return to. This is not grasping but simply not forgetting what is always already present. All under heaven will come when the practitioner rests in Buddha nature, all phenomena appear within that resting. There is nothing to seek because everything is already included. Internal martial arts. Make the passing traveler stop, but the serious practitioner recognizes these as bait and continues seeking what matters. Bland, without flavor, the highest skill appears unremarkable. The master's movement looks like anyone's movement until the moment of contact reveals that it is not. Cannot be exhausted, technique can be exhausted through fatigue, through opposition, through aging. Principle cannot be exhausted because it does not depend on strength, speed, or youth. The master at 80, moving slowly and simply, embodies what the young champion with all his power cannot touch. Wang Bi, philosophical. Such governance may appear successful temporarily, but it creates dependency and eventually resentment. The Tao, when spoken, is bland. Wang Bi interprets this as describing the sage's teaching, which appears unremarkable compared to the dramatic pronouncements of lesser teachers. The sage does not promise special powers, does not guarantee enlightenment, does not offer techniques for gaining advantage. The teaching seems almost empty, and this emptiness is precisely what allows it to contain everything. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Music and fine food. Heshang Gong applies this to the temptations of practice itself, the dramatic experiences, the unusual sensations, the visions and feelings that can arise during cultivation. These are bait that can trap the practitioner in endless pursuit of special states. Bland, Without flavor, the deepest practice is the most ordinary. The breath is just breath. The sitting is just sitting. Nothing special occurs because everything is already complete. What would be shrunk must first be stretched. What would be weakened must first be strengthened. What would be abolished must first be established. What would be taken must first be given. This is called the subtle light. The soft and weak overcome the hard and strong. Fish should not leave the deep. A nation's sharp weapons should not be displayed. Shi. Contract, shrink one pole of the natural cycle. Zhang. Stretch, expand the opposite pole, what precedes contraction. Ru. Weaken, soft, what the Tao uses, the position of advantage. Chaiyang. Strengthen, hard, what precedes weakening, apparent power. Internal martial arts. The internal artist waits for this moment of maximum extension, which is also the moment of minimum stability. To yield against extension is to allow the opponent to defeat himself. Soft and weak overcome hard and strong. This principle appears across every tradition. The judoka redirecting a charge, the wrestler using an opponent's momentum, the internal artist neutralizing force through yielding. The hard force, meeting no resistance, overextends. The soft response, utilizing that overextension, redirects the force against its source. Wang Bi, philosophical. The wise ruler recognizes these signs and acts accordingly, not by causing the cycle but by aligning with it. Subtle light, Wang Bi interprets this as the perception that sees what ordinary perception misses. The ruler with this perception sees decline in apparent prosperity, sees weakness in apparent strength, sees ending in apparent beginning. Such perception allows response before events become obvious, not manipulation but attunement. Heshang Gong, cultivation. Forces the body into positions, creates the hardness that practice should dissolve. Fish should not leave the deep, the practitioner should not abandon inner cultivation for outer achievement, should not trade the wealth of the center for the poverty of external recognition. Sharp weapons, Heshang Gong may read this as the unusual capabilities that practice develops. Displaying these invites challenges that waste energy, concealing them allows continued cultivation. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. The stretched will shrink, the strong will weaken, the established will be abolished, not through manipulation but through the nature of time and change. Subtle light, Chan might interpret this as prajna, the wisdom that sees through appearances to reality. This light is subtle because it does not project onto phenomena but illuminates what phenomena truly are. Soft and weak overcome hard and strong, the empty mind overcomes the grasping mind, the awareness that does not resist passes through all resistance. The Tao never acts. Yet nothing is left undone. If lords and kings could hold to it, the 10,000 things would transform of themselves. If, in transforming, desire should arise, I would quiet it with the nameless uncarved block. The nameless uncarved block brings freedom from desire. Without desire, there is stillness. And all under heaven settles of itself. Non-action, not passivity but action aligned with nature. Nothing not done, the complete efficacy of non-action. Show, guard, maintain how rulers should relate to the Tao. Transform of themselves, spontaneous, unforced change. Wang Bi, philosophical. The teaching is available. Whether rulers accept it determines whether their rule succeeds or fails. The nameless uncarved block, Wang Bi interprets this as the fundamental principle before it differentiates into particular applications. By offering this root rather than the branches, the sage ruler addresses desire at its source rather than battling its countless manifestations. All under heaven settles of itself. This is the goal of governance. Not control but spontaneous order, not obedience but natural harmony. Heshang Gong, cultivation. The practitioner's role is not to force change but to create conditions that allow change. If desire should arise during practice, desires arise, for experiences, for progress, for special states. Quiet it with the nameless uncarved block. Return attention to the basic practice, the simple breath, the unadorned sitting. This simplicity absorbs desire without fighting it. Without desire, there is stillness. The goal of practice is not the attainment of particular states but the settling of the mind into its natural stillness, from which all authentic transformation arises. Bodhidharma Chan, Zen. Action and non-action are both concepts that appear within the stillness of awareness. The enlightened one does not decide to act or not act. Response arises naturally from the situation, complete and appropriate without deliberation. If, in transforming, desire should arise, Chan recognizes that even in awakening, desires can arise. The teaching is not that awakening eliminates desire but that desire need not control the awakened one. The nameless uncarved block, Buddha nature, before it is named Buddha nature, before it becomes something to attain. Internal martial arts. The 10,000 things would transform of themselves. The practitioner who maintains correct principle finds that technique develops spontaneously. Instead of learning 1,000 applications, the master who understands one principle can manifest countless applications. If desire should arise in combat, the desire to win, to look impressive, to defeat the opponent. These desires create tension that slows response and telegraphs intention. The nameless uncarved block, return to basic structure, fundamental alignment, the root from which all technique grows. Discovering the Deeper Aspects of the Tao, by Ryan Franklin. Both volumes are available on Amazon and free on Kindle Unlimited. Links in the description. The journey continues in Volume 2, Tai. Chapters 38 through 81. Where the Tao describes the source, the Tai reveals its power in action.